All right, welcome, folks. We're here with Marcy Friedman out of Miami, Florida, and she's going to share with us some updates that are going on there. And we have a very special show for you today. Why don't you go ahead and get started?
Well, hello, America. And I'm here because I'm Cuban and I know what injustice looks like and what injustice feels like. And we were victimized in Cuba by the dictatorship of Fidel Castro, dismantling families and taking away our parents' hard-earned properties and inheritances. Today is National Women's Day, and I'm going to applaud my mother for making me the strong woman that I am to have survived this victimization by the judicial court system in Florida. I don't see how it can be said that it is a free state when more than one too many victims have been trafficked and put away, isolated, which is a civil rights violation and against the ICCPR and the Constitution of the United States. For these people that feel that because they hold power, that they can do whatever they want because they have impunity. And I'm here to say that that's wrong. It felt wrong. And people need to feel safe in this country because this is the 14th Amendment of the United States, and it's our civil rights and our inalienable rights that are being targeted. And so I'm speaking with my constitutional rights of having my voice, and as a Cuban woman, and it's National Women's Day today, how all of us are standing up for the rights of our vulnerable individual, our mothers. And today I thank God that I had such a strong woman raise me, and she raised me to have a voice. So what's going on in Florida right now, there's an investigation going on about properties being sold from the vulnerable. And I don't have quite the whole detail yet, but we have the link that we can attach to this. I'm also very proud to be part of the management team for America United International, which is a grassroots civil rights movement that they are part of standing up for the most vulnerable, the children, the disabled, the elderly. So and I like to share some information. There was Dr. Zena Crenshaw Logo, who was, she had a suspicious death. She was really fighting for the civil rights movement. And she's written a lot of books. I also like to honor her today because she was a strong woman that held up to adversity and to try to protect the public and the citizens of the United States of America from being targeted. You know, abuse comes in many forms. I felt very helpless going to the court system, how a daughter whose mother had been incapacitated and how they failed to incapacitate her to steal the property and to have her trafficked and put her inside a garage. That if a person holding power cannot see that and approve all this explosive and extraordinary attorney's fees like they labeled it, then there's something very wrong with the system.
And definitely.
Checks and balances. What do you think?
Yeah, right? No, I agree with you 100%. I mean, if they're stealing people's property and targeting their own citizens, Ooh, that's a tyranny. A gilded cage is still a cage.
And inheritances. My mother was like a slave. A prisoner had more rights, so they couldn't target at me anymore. What did they do? They put a supervision order on her. That's very illegal to do that.
Oh yeah.
And
Oh yeah.
attacking an elderly without dignity. And I'm not mentioning names because these people are not even worth me mentioning their names. Believe me, God has their name. And this
Oh
is
yes,
evil.
he does. And
Yes, he
there will be hell
does.
to pay to
Well,
them
let's
on his
let's see
behalf.
now. Yeah, I like to read a little bit about what AUI is all about. Um, so I'm gonna get off so I can read this real quickly. Let me
Go right
see.
ahead, Marcy.
No, okay. So let me see. AUI is the timeout slash code blue on the weaponization of America's legal system. We're taking our lead from the Declaration of Independence and declaring that Americans have gone to jail or to prison too often and had our children and grandparents and our parents taken from us because of the corruption that's supposed to be protective services. We've lost jobs and careers. The list of injustice never ends when the fix is in. So AUI has taken the situation to the International Criminal Court, and we're saying that one US president after another has turned blind eye to these crimes against humanity, and that's a crime against humanity. We've asked that President Biden be investigated as to why he seems willing to let US courts beat up on the people of this country. And less than 30 days after AUI launched, the Biden administration acknowledged our concerns and promised a reply. No US president has ever directly answered an advocate addressing organized abuse America's legal system before the Biden's administrations specifically responded to our correspondence from June of last year. However, we can't stop there. Mainstream media and the US Supreme Court are barely revealing the tip of the iceberg when it comes to judicial corruption. America, and there's no mention of AUI or Optin USA, which are sister companies, were the voice of people being literally persecuted and psychologically tortured through abuse of America's legal system. If what we have to say is kept quiet and we are hidden from the news and mainstream, get ready for a whitewash at best. There will be legislation and new inspector generals and the new rules and maybe sacrificial lamb here and there, but the day of the day abuse and corruption will not even pause. They gave Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. an EEOC that's so underfunded and understaffed that, relatively speaking, it does not stop discrimination. So AUI needs to keep the truth about deliberately violations of rights of US courts before mainstream American in a way that people who are not living the nightmare can understand and trust. And so this is what AUI stands for. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Marcy. Go ahead.
There's a big truck behind me. So this is what AUI stands for. I'm reading this because this is what they stand for. I'm not saying this out of my own words. I'm just reading what they're all about. And I believe I have a constitutional right to be able to do that in freedom of press.
You do. You absolutely do. Everybody does. Everybody has the
Yes.
right to free speech, which is why I created the News for Us the way I did. I mean, I don't know if you know this, but the News for Us news organization is grassroots itself. And I founded it to be grassroots because I wanted there to be no question as to our integrity when it comes to our reporting. I wanted people to know without a doubt there's no other ulterior motive for our reporting, and that's kind of how I founded it. So I got a lot of admiration and respect for your knowledge of our Constitution, your
Thank
knowledge
you.
of our rights. I'm very, very impressed. I'd like to say you're a shining example of what a naturalized citizen
Well,
should be doing.
you know, I remember studying with my mother to become American citizens. And it was ingrained in me because they were so happy that they were able to come to the United States, work really hard, and be able to express their opinion and spend their money the way they wanted to. Never in a million years did I think that my mother would be a victim of these crimes, because it's a crime. She might
Absolutely.
be dead, but I'm not a second class citizen, and abuse is not acceptable. And now I am healing because there were years and years of abuse, taking me like in a roller coaster, up and down, like a merry-go-round. And my poor mother, who should have never been put through that because she had already been incapacitated with developmental disability, where a court-appointed attorney coerced her into signing a power of attorney, which is very illegal and
It
non and
is.
void. Three
Yep.
judges and one recused. It speaks loud. And like I said, I'm not mentioning their names because there's no winning as long as these people have power to do this to the American people and to a
Yep.
marginalized group of elders. A marginalized group are elders.
Yep.
There's so
Absolutely.
many now in Florida. There are over 50,000. Could this be genocide, you think?
I know so. I mean, if they're doing it with malice of forethought, with intent behind it, and they know what they're doing, it's clearly they're doing this for nefarious purposes, obviously, and that would fall under that category, I would assume.
Well, like I said, I'm not mentioning these bad players' names, but anybody that is in the side of injustice, it tells me a lot. And I'm not a
It
lawyer,
does.
and I can add 1 + 1 = 2, and I'm a fake blonde.
Oh, I love it. I love it. No, that's great.
So whether we win this or not, we are chipping away to the truth, because the truth always comes out,
Yes.
and God doesn't like injustice. And I thank God for my strong mother, that she said to me, if somebody throws you a flower, you throw them one back, but if they shut the door, you do it harder.
There you
Hey,
go.
Marcy, I wanted to ask you a question. I sent the video you sent me for 15 minutes. I did listen to it. It seems like this city attorney Mendez and her husband are conspiring to extort property in Miami
Yep.
from the senior citizens who are guardianized and wards of the state. And
And
it looks like there should be an investigation.
There should
there
be.
is an investigation. The report that I sent you is an investigation. So if you listen
Yes.
to it all, I would
Yes.
say put that link in this so people can listen to it, because it's exactly what
Definitely.
happened to my mother. They're guardianizing people, and they're putting into the properties for sale, and then they
Oh,
jack it up. So,
I
and
see that.
that was an investigation.
Yes, it is.
Isn't that
And it
also
looks like
considered
it's
racketeering, what they're
collusion,
doing?
extortion and collusion.
Wow.
Those are
Well,
crimes.
that's why I couldn't win in court when you go in front of 3 judges. And my mother was already incapacitated by a doctor, and they don't see
Yes.
anything wrong. How can you ever win?
Right, because
You
they're
I
can't.
they're
lost
they're
my
case fixing.
inheritance,
They're
everything.
case fixing, folks, is what people need to understand. They're fixing cases ahead of time. They're already they already know how their outcome's going to come out. They're case fixing.
We
And the other,
we we want you on the stage for our rally in Fort Lauderdale. We want you to tell us exactly what's going on here.
oh yeah, and a lot of victims. I think Luann Fleming and Robin Austin are going to be reaching out to you.
I
The
am.
same.
I'm on the show. I'm on the show tonight and
Oh,
next
great.
Wednesday. Yeah,
Marcy,
Right.
have you
Okay.
seen?
And then Hillary
it's a
Holt too.
happening.
Yeah, and Hillary Holt, she is representing the Florida public in the guardianship task force. And if you Google it, you will see a lot of those meetings. And I've spoken, wanting for help, like even 3 years ago, about, I spoke in the Senate, how can this be happening to my mother? And they all said, I'm sorry, but nothing was done. And I can't believe that these people work for the United States of America. They're paid by the American
I know.
Right.
taxpayers, and they are elected by us. And then they say, oh, excuse me, Ms. Friedman, your time is up and we can't listen to you. To me, that's
Yes.
just,
It's wrong.
that's something really wrong here.
It is wrong.
And like I said, I'm not mentioning names. I wouldn't want to be targeted by them
Oh, I
because
know.
we're dealing with evil people, and we're probably dealing with people that are not in the right mind.
Oh,
You know,
I would
so-
agree with you 100%. Just look at their
You
actions.
know what? Oh yeah, no, it's terrible, but my mother deserves for me to speak up for her, and the elderly, vulnerable, and the disabled deserve to be protected, because I believe that
Yes.
I'm not going to let my pain go to waste. And I have been brutalized through these atrocities, and so has my mother, and so are probably 50,000 in the state of Florida or more.
And you
Yeah,
know,
the
it's,
people have to know.
they do have to
Marcy.
know.
They have to
They have
know.
to know.
And like I
Yes.
said, I'm reading things from what I
Yes.
see, and it's facts. And I'm not
Yes.
mentioning anybody's name, and this is my opinion, but my time is up. And I'll talk to you
Okay.
tonight. And then please use that link and put it on as an attachment to
Will do.
this.
I'll put it in the description
Because-
when we air this next Tuesday.
The facts speak for themselves.
Exactly.
They do. The
Thank you
truth.
so
I'll
much for
talk to
being
you.
on to Campaign
Thank you
for
very
America.
much.
Thank you, Marcy.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
You know, the truth doesn't need any help standing up, folks. Only lies need lies to support them. The truth doesn't need any help standing on its own. It will always stand on its own by itself, and it always comes to light, folks.
Right. Stephen, this is episode 18 of the Campaign for America. Our guest was Marcy Friedman from Miami, Florida. Her mother was exploited by the probate court guardianship in Miami-Dade County. Therefore, she has been very much brutalized, victimized, like many of us, including myself. How could anybody have a chance to change the system unless they understand what's going on? But however, this is going on all over America.
Oh yeah, and not only that, it's going around around the world too. We got a couple cases out of the UK that we've done covered, and with the CPS issue, and it's happening there too. So I suspect this is actually globally occurring, not just here but everywhere.
Exactly. And I have to tell you again, people, I have written a book called The Ball Doctrine, Creating Peace and Prosperity in Every Nation. Accountability is job one, plus creating a middle class in every country so that children can go to school rather than swimming for sponges in the Philippines and making bricks in Pakistan to survive, let alone thrive. I want to say that in these other countries, as you're expressing here, Stephen, I have created 8 political parties on 8 continents with the Ball Doctrine as the basis for change in those nations. That's important. Why is it important? Because children and families are important to God, and they're important to each other, especially if you value your family. Valuing your family should be number one in my world, and having an opportunity to survive and thrive, number two. So therefore, they go hand in glove, and it is time for we, the people who understand these things, to do something about it. And that's why I'm here. That's why Marcy's here. That's why you're here, Stephen. We're here to do something about it. And for that, I'm blessed. Today's show is designed to give us an opportunity to communicate. I was going to ask you, Stephen, is there a chance that people can call in and begin to ask questions?
I'm gonna look in. I'm gonna set something up for the near future so we can do that, because I had tried doing a call-in line, but it wasn't quite functional as far as the audio coming in. But I'm gonna get that situated soon, and so we'll be able to do that. I think that's
Okay.
important.
Yeah, that is important. And certainly, from our discussions yesterday, this show here will appear next Tuesday at 4 o'clock, and it is pre-recorded because Marcy's time is very limited, but she wanted to communicate her thoughts. And I'm familiar enough with the AUI. They're out of Louisiana. This Miss Brown is behind it. I don't have her full name in front of me, but I did attempt to contact her, left my number for her to call me. And there is an attorney down there, a U.S. attorney by the name of Peter Strasser. He was assigned during the Trump administration to be the attorney there. I don't know if he's still there or not. Michael Simpson was his deputy attorney for the District of New Orleans. And I had the opportunity to send them my autobiography. They know I'm running for president of the United States. And I might tell you folks, one of the issues I'm beginning to realize with some people is the difference between me and Donald Trump. Now, Donald Trump has a background in business where I have a background in academia. The differences are this, though. The issue of business and prosperity doesn't necessarily mean how successful you are in business, but how much understanding you have of business in order for business to work in America. One of the problems that we have in this country right now is a lack of understanding how to make business work for we, the people. And my suggestions have been in my book writing that we as a people understand that wages and benefits are equally as important as skilled labor, as educating our people in the area of manufacturing and industry, and in terms of what it would require to bring back industry in the United States so that our people can earn a living wage instead of having all these stupid minimum wage jobs just to survive, let alone try to thrive. I think it's outrageous that our country people sit here and do nothing positive about this. I am not one of those who will sit on their butts and do nothing.
Nor am I.
And I will say that until we get all the facts out in the open, we cannot expect change to come. And I'm tired of people moaning and groaning and bitching about the problems in their lives when they have no idea how they got here and what to do about them. And so therefore, I am, as a presidential candidate, declaring today that we have got to get educated in the facts of how to solve these problems rather than continue to look at the problems as a wall that cannot be overcome and either blown through or stepped over. And I, for one, think that there is a way of communicating these truths. As president of the United States, I will be transparent to bring that out. You can actually read my lips if you go to Amazon.com and look at my books and get one in your hand. I think it would be an excellent thing for you to do, and start with my book, One Nation, Under God, United, Not Divided. And that book will be very important for you because it's a book of essays that talk about both the economics of our time, the families of our time, and that the time has come for a third party to rise to be the leader of our people to get us the hell out of these problems and into the solutions. What say you, Stephen?
I agree 100%. And what you said about the whole business aspect, about, you have to have an understanding of business in order to make business work for we the people. You're absolutely right. And one of the problems I see is that we got corporate greed cutting corners and hiring cheaper, cheaper employees that they can pay cheaper wages to, and that's part of the problem. And I think one of the ways we can go back to is we need stricter standards on what businesses can get away with and what businesses can do. If they have been caught doing something they're not supposed to be doing, we need stricter standards. We need criminality and prosecution, not just fees or financial cost to make them toe the line, basically.
I agree with that. A good example of that is you'll have a young worker in a corporation who makes the discovery of how to save money for the consumer. But as soon as that's been proven, here comes the corporation firing that worker and putting him on the street. Therefore, what does the worker do with his discovery? Does he patent it? Does he find investors to invest in his idea or his product? That's what corporate America has become. It is a dragon. Corporatism is real. And that's one of the problems we have. How do we overcome that?
That's a hard one to
overcome that.
That's a hard one to address. I mean, I myself, I'm fortunate to have to be able to have that the understanding that there's a fine line between greed and prosperity, and I think that it's a tall order. We're definitely going to have to make some major changes, but I think one of the ways we can begin to do so is, like I said, stricter standards and stricter punishment for companies that break these laws. Employees are supposed to have rights, unalienable rights when it comes
Where's
to
the
being
Justice
employed.
Department?
Right, exactly.
Where's the antitrust busting? This is what
Exactly.
Theodore Roosevelt was busy doing during the 1900s with people like David Rockefeller.
Yep.
And John Getty, and these people who were 10 feet tall and had more money than God.
Yep.
What these people were doing was exploiting the people. Has anything changed?
Nope, it hasn't. It's just worse now. And now they're
So
paying
who
off
owns
those.
who?
Now they're lobbying and paying off the courts and the systems of checks and balances that would normally be doing their job and protecting we the people, which they are no longer doing, folks.
That's it. So who owns who? Who does what? What does it? These are the issues that need to be discussed openly so that people have a chance to understand what is really happening to them, that people have to know. And that's all part of what we're dealing with right now. This is a crisis. Crisis. How do you get a crisis under control? You've got to understand the problem. And from there, you work to get the problem solved. In this case, my attitude is that we have got to get people in government on election day who represent the family's interests.
I agree.
The children's interests, the parents' interests, the interests of the grandparents, and the ability for the family to survive and thrive interest. How do we go about that? We sure as hell are not going to do it by sticking our head in the sand. That's a fact. And say, people, I'm a different kind of candidate. I'm not bought and paid for by anybody except my relationship to Jesus Christ. And he tells me what to do. Praise God. And he guides me. He's the one who's provided me this opportunity to serve you and your children and the future. And my running mate, Richard A. Sanders. Both of us understand exactly how this has to go. We're living at a time of uncertainty. And in these times, this is what's required. So I will leave it on that basis, that the most prudent thing that all of us can do is get busy, start learning solutions.
Yes.
And I will attempt in this program, while I have a voice to do it, not only today, but in the future, as we continue to roll into the airport rallies. The airplanes are coming, and the communications and the media all over to help us change the culture to the we, us, and our, from the me, mine narcissism that this nation has become.
Absolutely.
And for that, I am blessed, but I'm also very angry at my generation for allowing all of this to go down, especially since the death of President Kennedy.
Here, here. I second that notion. You're absolutely right. We have a lot of work to do, and one thing that everybody can do for themselves is start looking into these issues. Google it, like, or whatever your favorite search engine is. It doesn't have to be Google. It could be Brave. It could be DuckDuckGo. It doesn't matter. They're all you can get the information. You just have to look. And so I would encourage everybody to start looking. Literally, if you have a question about anything, you can literally type it into a search engine and get your answer the way you would ask it to a person. So that's how simple it has become. So there is no reason why any of us should not have the access or should not be looking into stuff. If we're not, it's because we're choosing not to look. So there's no more excuses, folks. We need to start utilizing the tools that we have at our disposal, which is unprecedented because considering our forefathers didn't have access to these kinds of tools like the internet that we are so fortunate to have. Let's get our heads out of our asses, mind my language, and start doing something about it, folks.
We must. It is our time to get it done, and I'm encouraged. But I have to say that it's also an opportunity for all of us to participate in good government. That has always
Absolutely.
been the key role of the citizens, to make that possible and to ensure that our rights are affirmed and preserved. And when they are challenged and attacked, then it is our duty to step in and correct it. And
Absolutely.
that's exactly at a time that like this that must occur. We have been blessed as a nation. Many people have died for this country. Just look at the military graves. But the thing that really pisses me off is when I see a veteran on the street, homeless, and he devoted himself to the preservation of our own country and put his life on the line. And yet we have illegal aliens coming in here from all directions, getting supported by our own government at the expense of the taxpayers and our veterans.
Yep.
This is unacceptable.
Absolutely unacceptable. There's no excuse for that. And it's not just a case of the left hand not knowing what the right hand is doing. These bastards clearly know what they're doing. And when it's been tried to be addressed in courts, the courts have colluded with the government, folks. That's the situation we're in. It is a dire situation because we have no justice system. We have a two-tiered system where we have the haves and the have-nots. And the have-nots, meaning we the people, are not getting due process. It's just being ignored by all the courts that we have in our land. Okay. And I suspect it goes up much higher than just the criminal. I suspect it might even go up to the Supreme Court just based on the Brunson case, ruling, in my opinion. And, so we need to be considering that because I've seen the evidence to connect a lot of these different corruption angles, CPS, APS, medical fraud, and even the school board issue. They all have money trails that tie back together. So it's all part of one big freaking scheme going on here, folks. But that's what's going on. That's the reality of it. And you don't have to take my word for it. Look it up. It's out there. The information is there.
Folks, join the AOA, the American Party of America. Join the future. Join AOA-ANC.org. Become a precinct worker. Become a campaign manager for your state. Become a campaign manager for your local community. Support candidates in the AOA who work in the best interests of the family, of children, parents, and grandparents. Make that the staple of your life. If you believe in justice, become a candidate. If you're
Yes.
a student in law, become a law enforcement person. Become engaged in the process of our Constitution, supporting it, affirming it, and holding those accountable who violate it, and make it stick. We need prosecutors who are not bought and paid for by people like George Soros
Yep.
on allowing criminals to walk the street after they committed violent crimes, or who have the audacity to spit in the face of our veterans who died for us and want to change our culture to a society of misfits and derelicts and think that that's cool. No, it's not. And it's not the way children should be raised. Children want to know they're secure and they want something positive to look to.
They
They
deserve
can't do
something
that if the
positive to look
country
to.
is like that.
They
That's a
deserve
fact.
something positive to look to. Like, how can we not give them that? Like, if we're not, then we're being selfish, folks. These kids definitely deserve to have a support and something to look forward to, and not have to be raised the way they're being raised now and in our society. It's really sick what these bastards have done.
It is. Foster children being trafficked, taken from their parents because of how the Clintons worked the White House and afterward by putting Title IV funding through the Social Security Fund so that the states can be rewarded financially for stealing people's children.
Yep.
What an atrocity.
Look up the Title IV incentivization, folks, on the CPS issue. You'll see what he's talking about. And another good source for that is the AFC.net book by Doreen Ludwig. It's got a lot of information that ties all that aspect together for you folks as well, if you want to look that up.
Join the AOA, the ANC, the American National Committee. We are the Americans. We are family first. If you're not working for your family, who are you fighting for? If you're not fighting for your family, who are you working for? That's important, people. So as a consequence of that theme, we are the white states. The blue states and the red states reflect the Republicans and the Democrats. We are the Americans. We are family first, and we represent virtue, veracity, integrity, honesty,
And true justice.
and making justice stick, and providing accountability, especially judiciary, and reparations to those who've been impacted personally. All this has to do with the relation of people who have been damaged and harmed by people in authority, whether it is in business or in government. Therefore, we must remember where we came from and who we serve. And for me, it is God. So we need to return him back to our culture and our society. Theodore Roosevelt said, you're not 50 this and 50 that. Either you're in or you're out. Either you're an American or you're not. What say you?
I agree. I agree 100%. And, and for those folks that may not be very religious, do it for the kids. Do something for the kids. Fight for those that are being taken advantage of. Fight for the kids who are being trafficked. Fight for the parents and mothers and elderly who are being taken advantage of and abused. Fight for all those that have been affected by the medical fraud. Use those as your reasons if you're not a religious person. We all have something to contribute here, and we all need to step up and do our part now.
This is a war. This is the type of thing what's going on in Russia and Ukraine. We are in spiritual warfare with evil, and we need to recognize it for what it is. Those men in the graves in Arlington and elsewhere gave their all for us so that we could be free. Now we must defend our freedom for them and for our children,
yes,
and for generations to come.
for all generations to come.
Exactly. This is what's necessary, people. This is what we must do. As Patrick Henry said, give me liberty or give me death. He was concerned that the Constitution, if ratified, would be a way for the judges to hide behind it. And so they have.
That's what they're
And
doing,
you see
folks.
what's happened.
They're hiding behind their immunity privilege and their powers and all that, and they're using their positions as a blunt weapon to take advantage and rob people, everyday citizens, of their own due process and rights and kids and everything else, and even land and property, as Marcy pointed out earlier.
They have weaponized the judiciary to hurt the people. The people have a duty now to correct that problem and to de-weaponize them and put them in their place, which is, in my opinion, in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, with military tribunals and punishment for treason.
Here, here.
And you can start with Hillary Clinton and her husband, and every president since them up until Trump. And the only reason I say that is because I do not believe Donald Trump would do the things that they did, nor do I believe that he is a problem. But that the one thing I have to say is this about any president who will not affirm and do and act the very things that I'm talking about, then they should not be the president, because we are in a crisis that requires action.
Here, here. Here, here.
We can't sit here on the fence, people. There's no more time. This is where we are. We're at a pivotal moment in history. We must operate on a basis of do, and make it happen, and get the organs of power in this nation to work for we the people.
Yes, absolutely.
Praise God.
Here, here. Praise God. Well said. Well said.
It is time that the people rise, stand up, be heard, get educated, become candidates, whether it's in law enforcement or in politics, and become the force for change in America.
Yes. And
Praise God.
And if for whatever reason, folks, you're not interested in politics or law enforcement, I'm always looking for article writers that want to volunteer their time and help with the news for us. So that's another thing that our viewers can do to participate and help do something to make a change. So I want to encourage everybody. You also have that option. I'm always looking for people to help with the article writing. So putting that out there.
Very good. Well, listen, this has been fun to communicate this afternoon and today. This is for the episode 18